Welcome everyone to By Jash Channel. All right, today we're diving deep into a world full of adventure and intrigue and really a fascinating look at African history.
Oh, yeah.
And all this from just one source. Wilbur Smith's 1982 novel, The Angels Weep.
Yeah, it's amazing how Smith, even though he's writing fiction, he really manages to weave in these real historical events and cultural details. It's like he's built us this time machine so we can go back and witness this really pivotal period in Southern Africa.
Exactly. Yeah, and instead of getting bogged down in summarizing the whole plot, we're really going to focus on those elements that make this world so captivating.
Right.
Think about the characters, their lives, the historical backdrop, all the really interesting details without spoiling the whole story for you.
Yeah.
Are you ready to kind of explore this?
Absolutely. Let's start with the heart of the story, the Ballantyne family.
Okay, so let's unpack this family a little. Who are the key players here, and what makes them so intriguing?
Well, you've got Ralph. He's the patriarch, really connected to the land. And his wife, Kathy, who's got this vibrant personality, really shines through. And she's got this unusual characteristic. Her eye color actually changes with her mood.
Whoa.
Then there's Zuga, Ralph's father. He's like this seasoned adventurer.
Right.
And Jonathan, their son. So together, they embody this spirit of adventure and resilience. They're not afraid of a challenge.
Wow, can you imagine your eyes shifting color with your emotions?
Right.
What a detail. It sounds like they're living this life that, most people just dream of, but their world isn't all sunshine and safaris, right?
Yeah.
The novel is set during a time of immense historical change in Africa.
Right, you are. This is a time of expanding European influence, particularly that of the British South Africa Company led by Cecil Rhodes. And we see this historical backdrop kind of come into play through Ralph's interactions with Rhodes. You can sense this tension, this clash of viewpoints, hinting at potential conflict.
So we've got this clash of personalities and ideologies. That's a recipe for some serious drama.
Oh, yeah.
But there's another force at play here. Something even more powerful and mysterious.
Yeah.
The Umlimo.
The Umlimo is the spiritual leader of the Matabele people, and let me tell you, their prophecies carry immense weight. There's one particularly chilling prophecy that mentions cattle lying with twisted heads. This foreshadows a devastating event that will have a deep impact on the characters and the choices they make.
Okay, yeah, I can see why that would kind of send chills down anyone's spine. What's fascinating here is how Smith blends this element of spirituality and uncertainty into the story. Can you tell us more about the impact of the Umlimo on the people?
The novel describes people desperately seeking the Umlimo's guidance, driven by this mixture of fear and reverence.
Yeah.
This blend of spirituality and uncertainty adds a whole other dimension to the story. Imagine a society where prophecies have a very real and tangible impact on daily life.
It's like a ticking time bomb. And if I remember correctly, that prophecy about the cattle, it comes true in a really horrific way, right?
Yes, it does, with the arrival of rinderpest, a catastrophic cattle plague. This devastating disease wipes out the herds, causing economic and cultural upheaval. And this, in turn, fuels the Matabele Rebellion against white settlers.
So the prophecy becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The fear it generated contributes to the very events it foretold.
Right.
But let's kind of shift gears a little bit.
Yeah.
The novel doesn't shy away from depicting the brutal realities of war, does it?
Not at all. Smith paints this vivid picture of the violence and fear that grips both Black and white communities. The scene at the Inyati River trading post is particularly harrowing, showcasing the raw barbarity of the conflict.
Wow, that sounds incredibly intense. Is there a particular detail from that scene that stands out to you?
The shocking discovery of the telegraph operator's body, murdered in this seemingly secure haven, underscores the fear and danger. It shows that even seemingly safe havens can be shattered.
Right. It's a grim reminder of the human cost of conflict. But amidst all this chaos and violence, you mentioned a recurring symbol, this beacon of hope in history, the Zimbabwe bird. What can you tell us about that?
The statue of the Zimbabwe bird. Its journey is intertwined with the characters and the unfolding events. Initially stolen from the Great Zimbabwe ruins by Zuga, it eventually ends up in the possession of Cecil Rhodes, who sees it as a symbol of power and dominion.
It's fascinating how an object can hold such different meanings for different people. For Rhodes, it's a trophy, while for others, it represents this lost heritage. It seems like everyone in this story is grappling with the weight of history and the echoes of the past shaping their present.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the legacy of violence and the glimmer of hope that emerges from the wreckage.
Okay.
The Ballantyne family, marked by loss and trauma, must find a way to navigate the aftermath of the rebellion.
This is where Craig Ballantyne comes in, right? The descendant struggling with the weight of his family's history.
Exactly. Craig embodies the lingering impact of conflict, his own struggles with PTSD, highlighting the profound and lasting human cost of war that can transcend generations.
Yeah. It's a poignant reminder that the wounds of the past can echo through time, affecting those born long after the battles have ended. But amidst this darkness, you mentioned a flicker of hope emerges through Craig's relationship with Janine.
Yeah, his budding relationship with Janine offers a glimmer of hope, a possibility for healing and moving forward. It suggests that even in the shadow of a tumultuous past, love and connection can offer a path towards healing and rebuilding.
It's a powerful message, a reminder that even amidst the darkest chapters of history, the human spirit can find ways to endure and even thrive. But before we delve deeper into Craig's story, let's take a quick break.
When we return, we'll explore the individual journeys of the Ballantyne family, their triumphs and tragedies, and how they navigate the treacherous terrain of their changing world. Welcome back to our deep dive into The Angels Weep. You know, we've set the stage, explored the Ballantyne family and the historical context and that looming threat of the Matabele Rebellion. Now let's shift our focus a bit to those individual journeys that shape their destinies.
You know, I'm particularly interested in Zuga Ballantyne, Ralph's father. You mentioned his adventurous spirit and his connection to Africa. What makes him such a captivating figure?
Zuga, he is the kind of character that embodies the spirit of adventure. He's constantly seeking new experiences, pushing those boundaries of what's possible.
Yeah.
And his theft of the Zimbabwe bird from those great Zimbabwe ruins. Prime example.
Yeah.
Not only is it this daring feat, but it also sets off this chain of events that reverberate throughout the whole story.
Speaking of the Zimbabwe bird, it becomes a symbol of so much more than just a stolen artifact, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. You see, the Zimbabwe bird represents different things to different characters. For Zuga, it's a tangible link to his heritage, a source of pride. But for Rhodes, it's a trophy. It's a symbol of his power and ambition.
Okay.
And for Jordan, Rhodes' loyal servant, it takes on this almost religious significance.
It's amazing how one object can carry such different meanings and highlight those complex power dynamics.
Right.
But let's move on to Ralph.
Okay.
He seems to be walking this tightrope between his own ambitions and that brewing rebellion.
Yeah.
How does he navigate this?
Ralph. He is a fascinating character because he embodies that internal conflict of that era. I mean, he's deeply attached to his land and family, but he's also drawn to that potential wealth and power offered by Rhodes and the British South Africa Company.
Yeah.
He's not necessarily pro-colonialism,
Right.
but he's pragmatic and recognizes the opportunities it presents.
So he's not blind to the downsides, but he's also trying to make the best of it.
Exactly. He's skeptical of Rhodes' grand vision of a British-controlled Africa. And this skepticism creates tension in their interactions. He's not afraid to voice his concerns, even if it means challenging the most powerful man in the region.
He sounds like a man of principle, but also a realist.
Oh, yeah.
But there's another side to Ralph, right? The softer side, the loving husband and father.
Absolutely. His love for Kathy and Jonathan is undeniable. He really cherishes those moments of domesticity and finds joy in their company, even as the world around them is crumbling. Remember that scene where he's teasing Kathy and Harry Mello while they're in the bath?
Oh, yeah. A classic example of Ralph's playful nature.
Right.
But that lightheartedness is eventually shattered. With the arrival of the rinderpest epidemic, how does this impact Ralph and his family?
The rinderpest. That is a turning point in the story.
Yeah.
It's not just a disease, it's a catalyst for chaos and upheaval. The cattle, they die off in droves.
Right.
That prophecy of the Umlimo, it comes true.
Yeah.
And the Matabele people, they see it as a sign of their god's displeasure. This fuels their anger towards the white settlers, pushing them towards rebellion.
So this event has both a practical and a spiritual impact on the story.
Yeah.
It's not just about the loss of livestock. It's about that loss of stability,
Security.
of faith in the existing order.
Precisely. And for Ralph, it's personal. His livelihood is threatened, his world is thrown into turmoil, and the safety of his family, it's at stake.
Yeah, it sounds like the rinderpest sets the stage for that violence and chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And in the midst of this chaos, we see the true strength of certain characters emerge. You mentioned Kathy's remarkable courage. Could you kind of elaborate on that?
After discovering the gruesome fate of that telegraph operator, Kathy barricades herself and Jonathan in their wagon, armed and ready.
Wow.
She's not a trained soldier, but she's a mother protecting her child.
Right.
Her courage is born out of love and this fierce determination to survive.
It's a testament to that strength that can emerge.
Right.
But she's not the only one who rises to the occasion. What about Mungo St. John, the doctor?
Mungo. He is another character who undergoes this transformation. Initially, he's portrayed as somewhat aloof, but the rebellion forces him to step into a leadership role.
Okay.
He becomes responsible for the safety of the women and children, and he takes that responsibility seriously.
He goes from a man of medicine to a man of action.
In a way, yes. He's forced to make these tough decisions, to prioritize the safety of those entrusted to him, even when it means putting himself in danger. And his confrontation with those Matabele warriors showcases his bravery and unwavering sense of duty.
It sounds like a truly tragic, yet heroic scene. What stood out to you about that moment in the story?
Even though he knows he's facing certain death, Mungo stands his ground, doesn't back down, he doesn't beg.
Wow.
He faces his fate with dignity and courage, embodying the indomitable spirit of those fighting for their survival. His death is a turning point. It marks the shift in the balance of power, signaling that the rebellion is far from over.
And what about Ralph? How does Mungo's death affect him?
Ralph is devastated by the loss of his friend. It fuels his rage and strengthens his resolve to defeat the Matabele.
Okay.
But it also forces him to confront the cost of his choices and the burden of leadership in such a volatile environment. He's no longer just fighting for his land and family. He's fighting for the memory of those who have been lost, those who have sacrificed their lives in this brutal conflict.
It sounds like we're heading towards this final confrontation.
Oh, yeah.
This reckoning that will determine the fate of the Ballantynes and the future of the land they call home.
Indeed, the stage is set for a final showdown, a clash that will have far-reaching consequences for all involved.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Angel's Weep. We've journeyed with the Ballantyne family through adventure, love, and the brutal reality of that Matabele Rebellion. Now we find ourselves at the precipice of this final confrontation. So what awaits Ralph and the remaining characters you know as this conflict reaches its climax?
Well, the rebellion has taken a devastating toll on both sides, leaving these deep scars that will shape the future of the land. And for Ralph, the personal cost is immeasurable. After losing Kathy, he's consumed by grief, driven by this thirst for vengeance. It's a raw, visceral transformation. The man we knew, jovial, playful, hardens into this figure consumed by the fight.
It's a reminder of how trauma can fundamentally change a person.
Yeah.
So how does this manifest in Ralph's actions? Does he become like a different leader?
He becomes a formidable leader, but one driven by this singular purpose to crush the Matabele. He rallies his allies, strategizes with a ruthless efficiency. But this path, it's a dangerous one. As Ralph gets more and more immersed in the conflict, the lines between right and wrong start to blur.
You mentioned earlier that the novel doesn't shy away from the moral complexities of war. Is there a particular scene that exemplifies this struggle within Ralph?
There's this chilling scene where Ralph orchestrates this massacre of Matabele warriors. He uses his understanding of their culture, their beliefs, against them, manipulating their fear of the supernatural to achieve his military objectives. It's a chilling example of how war can force individuals to make choices that compromise their values.
It's a stark reminder that victory, it often comes at a price. And in Ralph's case, that price seems to be a part of his humanity. But you also mentioned that even in this darkness, this glimmer of Ralph's former self kind of persists. Can you elaborate on that?
Throughout this brutal conflict, Ralph's love for his son Jonathan, it remains this steadfast anchor. His determination to reunite with Jonathan fuels his actions and their eventual reunion. It's a powerful moment of hope. Reminds us that even when faced with unimaginable hardship, love can endure. It offers this path towards redemption.
So even though Ralph is transformed by the conflict, his love for his son acts as this tether to his humanity. But this story isn't just about individual journeys, right? It's also about that broader impact of the rebellion. How does the conflict shape the political and social landscape of the region?
The rebellion, despite its brutality, it ends with Cecil Rhodes solidifying his power. His vision of a British-controlled Africa takes shape. But it's a Pyrrhic victory, achieved at a terrible human cost. The seeds of resentment are sown, hinting at future conflicts.
It's a reminder that even when one conflict ends, another one might be brewing just beneath the surface. But what about that lasting impact on the characters? Does the novel offer any sense of closure or hope for the future?
The story leaps forward in time, introducing us to Craig Ballantyne, a descendant of Ralph.
Okay.
Craig grapples with the weight of his family's history, wrestling with PTSD that stems from the events of the rebellion.
Wow.
He embodies the enduring impact of the past, showing us how trauma can echo through generations.
So even though the rebellion is over, its consequences ripple through time. But you mentioned a glimmer of hope in Craig's story.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, despite his struggles, Craig finds a connection with Janine. Their budding relationship suggests the possibility of healing, of finding love and solace despite the weight of the past. It's a reminder that even the deepest wounds can heal with time and love.
It's this message of resilience and hope. So as we reach the end of our deep dive into The Angels Weep, what are some of those key takeaways that you want to leave our listener with?
This novel is this powerful exploration of the complexities of history, the enduring impact of the past, and the resilience of the human spirit. It prompts us to reflect on the choices we make, the legacies we inherit, and the power of love and hope to guide us through even the darkest of times.
Yeah, it's a story that resonates long after you finish reading it. And for our listener, it might spark some thought-provoking questions like, how does understanding history shape our actions in the present? How can we learn from the past to create a more just and compassionate future? What legacies do we carry, and how do they influence our lives?
These are questions worth pondering. And for anyone interested in exploring more of Wilbur Smith's captivating world, his other works offer this rich tapestry of adventure, intrigue, and profound insights into African history and culture.
So as we conclude this deep dive, we encourage you to continue exploring, learning, and diving deep into the stories that shape our world. Until next time, keep those thinking caps on.